but they can be a fish that has,
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I want to stop.
Let's just carry on. It's fine.
Every fish that has scales has fins, but there can be a fish that has fins but does not have scales. Every animal that has horns has split hooves, but there can be an animal that has split hooves but does not have horns. Everything that requires a blessing after it requires a blessing before it, but there can be something that requires a blessing before it but does not require a blessing after it. Okay.
Okay, and that concludes our section of Venn diagrams that are concentric circles.
Uh-huh.
Okay, now returning to our original subject, because the reason we went off on this tangent was because right at the beginning we were talking about the different simanim that when a girl becomes sexually mature. Um,
Mhm.
so now we return more or less to that subject. Tinokes shehevia shtei saros. So tinokes, we hear tinokes as a baby, but it's just a young girl who has
Okay.
once she has produced the two hairs. So if she's in a situation where her husband died without children, then she is completely capable of doing either chalitza or yibum. She is mature in all respects. And she is bas mitzvah. Now, the fact that we use the age of 12 is actually just an approximation.
Mm.
But because we don't go asking, people to go and please check to have they brought forth two hairs. Just say
Right.
12, zero. Okay. וחייבס בכל מצוות האמס בתורה. וכן תינוק שהביא שתי שרות, and same with the boy. Once he's got two pubic hairs, חייב בכל מצוות האמס בתורה, he is bar mitzvah. וראוי ליוס ben sorer or more. And he is also in the gather of becoming a ben sorer or more, mishi yavi shtei saros achi yakiv hazakan. From the moment that he's brought forth two hairs until the beard is completed, beard in inverted commas. Why? Because hatachtun v'lo ha'elyon. What they're talking about is the lower beard. Ela shedibru
Uh,
chacham b'lashon nakiya. They're speaking in clean language. Okay. Um, this interestingly is a reason for one of the chumras that they have at the matzah bakery, Rav at Leva Torah, where Rav Bagno is the Rav Machshir, and he holds his chumrah there is that he only allows boys from age 14 to make the matzahs. Why? Because 13 again is an approximation. It's just when we assume. And in most cases where we're relying on somebody to be bar mitzvah, it's not a big deal if he hasn't really actually reached maturity. So let's say he's a late bloomer, counting on him as the 10th guy for a minyan. Okay, it's a big deal. We said a davashib, we said davashib a kedusha with nine real men. It's not the worst thing in the world. Okay, no, we don't know about it, and there's no real effect. However, when you're making matzah for the mitzvah of Pesach, there the matzah has to be done with das. And if a boy is not making is participating in the making of matzahs without das, then this is not kosher matzah. So that's his comment over there. By 14, we can be really sure.
Excuse me, 1 second. Sure, I'm sorry. Yes. Hi. You got me going now? Okay, be careful. Okay, sorry.
Okay. Um, the Tinokes shehavia shtei saros. So back to the girl. Once she has brought two hairs, eina yechola lema'en. Now she is no longer in the parsha of doing miyun. So how could she do miyun? Miyun is the situation where she's an orphan, and her mother
Hmm.
and brothers gave her in marriage, which is just the marriage Rabbanan. So Rabbanan also baked into this marriage Rabbanan the fact that she's allowed to opt out. Uh,
Uh,
Okay, once she has reached maturity, however, she's no longer allowed to do miyun, and she needs a get in order to get out of the marriage. Rabbi Yehuda Omer ad she'yir hashachor, and Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. He says that it's not just two hairs. It's got to be until she has until she's fully developed the hair in that region.
uh,
Um, okay, and halacha does not follow Rabbi Yehuda. Um, let's see, Um, um, oh, just give me a second to send a message to somebody. Just try
sure.
to. Okay, so Mishnah Yud Beis. Shtei saros ha'amoros b'para. The two hairs that are spoken about with the para, right? The para duma is if it's got it becomes puzzle if it's got two hairs that are not red. Okay, negaim, they're two hairs that make a nega mukhlat. Okay, hamuras hamuras b'chomakom. Anytime that we're talking about these hairs, kedei lachof roshan liikaran divrei Rabbi Yishmael. So Rabbi Yishmael says, in order for these to qualify as full-on hairs, you've got to be able to bend them over double so that the tip can touch the base.
Ah.
Okay, so it's got to be long. Rabbi Elazar Omer Kadesh Likrot Betziporin. No, it's got to be long enough that you could grip it with your fingernails and pull it out. Okay, so that's shorter than Rabbi Yishmael's requirement. Rabbi Akiva Omer Kadesh Shiyuhu Nitalas Bezug. It's just got to be long enough that you could snip them off with with a pair of scissors. Okay, and the halacha doesn't say. Does yours say what's the halacha?
No, I don't see anything about the halacha on here.
Okay. All right. If it comes to,
Um,
we'll ask a.
mhm. Further. Okay, doesn't say. Okay, all right. Yud Gimel.
Yeah, haroa kesem. All right. So now, um, here's the situation: is that a woman is wearing is let's say she's wearing white underwear, and she takes a look at her underwear and sees a stain. Harei zon mekulkeles, v'choshesh mishum zov divrei Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir says she not only has to worry about being a niddah, she also has to worry about being a zava. Again, we're talking about the halachas that are being kept according to the basic halacha. We're not talking about the
Ah,
chumras that people keep nowadays. Okay, because everything we suspect is of. But here we're talking about horizontal killis, that if she sees a stain, says Rabbi Meir, she's got to keep all the chumras as if she's a zava gedola. Chachamim omrim ein bakasamim mishum zov. They say no, that's not anything to worry about. It's only if she actually sees blood. Now it turns out that the Gemara explains that the machlokis is not that big of a range actually. That the chachamim that are quoted over here is actually the opinion of Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus, and he says that if she wore every day a clean pair of underwear, and every day she saw a stain, then he would agree that that's a zava. Okay, she's got to keep the 7 clean days. Okay, um, and for sure, if she actually saw blood on 2 days and then on the third day she just saw a stain, there she would definitely be chosheshet for ziva. So the only machlokes is in a situation where she wore the same underwear for 3 days, and she saw a stain afterwards that was big enough for 3 days worth of bleeding. So here, the Rabbi Meir says you got to be choshesh that she bled 3 times on 3 different days, and therefore she's a zava gedola. And Rabbi Chanina ben Antigonus says no, this is we're just going to treat her as a simple niddah where she keeps just 7 days and goes to mikvah. Um, and the halacha here follows Rabbi Meir.
hmm.
Okay, let's go back to Dalad Gimel.
Gimel. Concerning uterine blood of a Gentile woman and a tahor blood of a Taurus, Beit Shammai renders both of these bloods tahor. But Beis Hillel says the blood of each of these women is like her spittle and like her urine. The blood of a woman who gave birth and did not yet immerse in a mikvah, Beit Shammai says it is like her saliva and a urine. But Beit Hillel says it generates tuba both moist and dry. But Beit Shammai concedes concerning a woman who gave birth in a state of ziva that her blood generates tuba both moist and dry. A woman who bleeds in labor is considered a niddah, and if a woman was bleeding in labor for 3 days within her 11 days of potential ziva, and she had relief for 24 hours and then gave birth, she is deemed to be one who has given birth in a state of ziva. These are the words of Reb Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says, a night and a day like the night of the Sabbath and its day. This means that she had relief from the pain, but not from the flow of blood. How long can a woman's labor last? With Meir says, even 40 or 50 days. Rabbi Yehuda says a month of childbirth is sufficient to her for her, and Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say there is no labor for more than 2 weeks.
Okay. Mikdos, Aleph Hey.
Okay. When do they become purified? Beis Shammai says when they are increased by a greater amount and they also overflow. Beis Hillel says if they were increased by a greater amount, even though they did not overflow. Reb Shimon says if they overflowed, even though they were not increased by a greater amount. They are fit for challah and for ritual rinsing of the hands. High grade is water in, I'm sorry, high grade is water in seeps that has not uh, ceased sleeping. If a tummy person drank from it and a tahor drank from it, he remains tahor. If a tummy person drank from it and one drew from it into a tahor vessel, he remains tahor. If a tummy person drank from it and then a loaf of truma fell into it, although it rinsed, he remains tahor. If one drew from it with a tummy vessel and the tahor person drank from it, he remains tahor. If one drew from it with a tummy vessel and then one drew from it from a tahor vessel, it's deemed tahor. If one drew from it with a tummy vessel and then a loaf of truma fell into it, although he rinsed it, it remains tahor. If tummy water fell into it and then a tahor person drank from it, he remains tahor. If tummy water fell into it and then one drew from it into a tahor vessel, it remains tahor. If tummy water fell into it and then a loaf of truma fell into it, although he rinsed it, it remains tahor, and it's fit for truma and for ritual cleansing of the hands. This is level 4. A higher grade is a mikveh that contains 40 saw, for in it one may immerse oneself, and in it one may immerse things. A higher level is a spring that has little water, and it was increased by a greater amount of drawn water. It is equal to a mikveh in that it purifies only with still water, and it is equal to a spring that in that one may immerse things therein, whatever the amount.
Okay. Nagayim, 5.
Oh man, I hope they don't throw me off the plane. Okay. Gimel. A bahar is the size of a grist that contains a mikveh less than a lentil. If the bahar is expanded, it becomes tahor. If it receded, it becomes tahor. If the mikveh expanded, the bahar becomes tameh, and if the mikveh receded, Meir renders it tameh, and the sages render it tahor because the mega does not expand inwards. A bahar is larger than a grist contain more than a lentil of the skin, and if they grew or receded, the bahar is tameh as long as they did not recede below the minimum size. A Baharis the size of a grist is surrounded by living skin, the width of a lentil, and another Baharis is outside the living skin. The inner one is confined and the outer one is contorted. Said Rabbi Yossi, the mikveh is not a symptom of tumah, for the outer egg of the Baharis is inside it. If the mikveh receded or disappeared, Rabbi Gamliel says if it is diminished on the inner side, it is a sign of expansion. For the inner rinse, for the inner nega and the outer nega become tahor. But if it diminishes on the outer side, the outer nega becomes tahor and the inner nega becomes confined. Rabbi Kiva says either case is tahor. Yeah.
Okay.
And we have Makaros. Okay. Well, Olive. On account of the following blemishes, a bakor may be slaughtered. Its ear is not on the cartilage, not in the skin, or it is slit, although nothing is missing, or it has a hole as big as a vetch, or it has dried up. What is considered dried up? Anything that, if punctured, does not emit a drop of blood. Rabbi Yossi ben Meshulam says it is so dry that it crumbles. An eyelid that is punctured, not or slit, or there is a cataract in its eyes, or it's commingling, or a nail-shaped snake-like growth, or a berry-shaped growth. What is commingling? The white breaks through the ring and enters the black. But if the commingling is in the black and enters the white, it is not a blemish, for there is no blemishes in the white. White flecks of water that are permanent. What are permanent white flecks? Any that remained 80 days. The Canadian Ben Antigono says we examine it 3 times within 80 days. What is a permanent water? What if it ate fresh and dry fodder from a rainwater field? If it ate fresh and dry fodder from an integrated field, or it ate dry fodder and afterwards ate fresh fodder, it is not considered a blemish unless it eats the dry after the fresh. Okay.
Okay.
And we have Gittin. Okay. Gimel Dalet. The Eliezer of Parcha says three things before the sages, and it confirms his words. Concerning the people in the city besieged by an army and those in a ship stormed by a sea, and one who goes to be tried, they are presumed to be alive. But concerning people in the city captured by an army and those in a ship lost at sea, and those who go to be executed, the stringencies of the living and the stringency of the dead are applied to them. The daughter of a non-Kohen married to a Kohen, and the daughter of a Kohen married to a non-Kohen may not eat of Truma. One who is bringing a get from within Eretz Israel became ill and may send it with another. But if he said to him, take from her such and such a thing for me, he may not send it with another, for he does not want to deposit it be in the hand of another. If one was bringing a get from overseas and became ill, the court appoints another and sends him, and he says before them, it was written in my presence and signed in my presence. The latter agent did not say, it was written in my presence, signed in my presence. Rather, he says, I am an agent of the court.
Okay.
And Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Okay. Yud Aleph. One who has stored a seed to be used for sowing or as a sample or for medicine and took it out on the Sabbath is liable for any amount. Other people, however, are not liable except for those who prescribed amount. If he changed his mind and brought it in, he is not liable except for his prescribed amount. If one who took out foodstuff and placed them in a threshold, whether he himself subsequently returned and then took them out, and whether someone else took them out, he's exempt since he did not perform his work at one time. One who took out a basket which was full of produce and placed it on the outer threshold, even though the greater portion of the produce is outside, he is exempt until he takes out the entire basket. One who takes out either his right hand or with his left hand in his bosom and on his shoulder is liable for such and such was the method of carrying used by the sons of Kots. If he carried it backhandedly or with his foot or his mouth, his elbow, in his ear, in his hair, in his money belt with the opening hanging downward, between his money belt and his shirt, and the hem of his shirt or his shoe or a sandal, he is exempt because he did not carry out in the manner of those who carry things out.
Okay. And we
All
done.
right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you
Remind
for